Hello, Sewickley Stream subscribers. My name is Matt Dobler. I'm unfortunately a little bit under the weather today, but I am here with Julianne Mazzarella, who is one of the candidates for Quaker Valley School Board, and she's agreed to set aside some time today so that we can get to know her a little bit. Julianne, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Nice to see you.
I wanted to start by giving you an opportunity to introduce yourself to Sewickley Stream subscribers and to voters.
Well, hi, my name is Julianne Mazzarella. I've been a resident here in Sewickley in the village since the fall of 2016. I am a mother to two boys that currently attend Osborne Elementary School, a fifth grader and a third grader. And I am a local business owner as well. I own Avenue Interiors, an interior design business that I run outside of my home. Many of you may know me as well from the Child Health Association and the YMCA and some other organizations that I'm involved in.
All right, excellent. You just flew through a whole bunch of things, and we want to unpack a bunch of those. So let's go back through that. So you mentioned volunteer time with the Child Health Association, and I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but your survey certainly mentioned Art in Motion. Tell us more about what you've learned from Sewickley about these activities, please.
Well, so Child Health Association, I've been a member of for 3+ years now, and I am the endowment chair in the group. When we first moved here, we were also part of Newcomers and Neighbors. I was also the treasurer of that group till it disbanded about a year before COVID. Attendance had been down. And it was harder and harder to get people to join and kind of commit. So while a wonderful program and it's sad to see it go, I wanted to get involved in another nonprofit here in the area, and Child Health. I was invited by some friends to join. It's a fantastic organization that focuses solely on providing grants to community charities that involve children. And it's just celebrated its centennial this past February. It has a rich history in the area, and I'm particularly drawn to things like that. Having moved around a lot, the goal to establish roots here really kind of drove me from the day we moved here to really hunker down, settle in, and make this, my town and my area.
Okay, so go back and tell us about Art in Motion.
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's degree of fine arts. And art is a passion of mine. It's something I love. It's something I appreciate. And I do think the liberal arts are important in school. So I was introduced to Art in Motion before. Yeah, I started right in kindergarten with the kids. And as they've grown older, it was what I loved the most about it. Wasn't just an interesting, uncomfortable 20 minutes of teaching, because I'm not a teacher. It was getting to meet all of the kids. And like, I'm now doing the fifth grade classrooms this year with the program now that it's back up and running with COVID and everything like that. And I still recognize like most of the kids. And I just think it's so cool that my boys get to be in a school district where I literally know almost every single student in their entire grade. And I can't wait until middle school when they get to meet all of the Edgeworth kids. I mean, we obviously know them from sports and things like that, but I just love that, like, I know what these guys looked like when they were 6 years old, and now they're almost teenagers. And it's just so cool, like that passage of time and seeing all of that. So it was a great experience, not just to share my love of art, but also to really get to meet the kids was always so exciting. So now when they talk about their friends, I know who they're talking about.
That's great. Okay. Anything separate about that than your sons at Osborne? Anything else you want to say about your sons at Osborne? Your experience with the school at Osborne?
It's been great. I love that my youngest is a third grader, and I love that like he can bike to school. I love the proximity of all of those, especially for the younger kids. That the fields are in the area as well. We're near the middle school, and that's really great too for activities. It's just the community in and of itself. I mean, we're in such a unique position here. And then as far as the school goes, the education system here is wonderful. Pennsylvania is a great state to live in. I grew up in a state that has a really strong education system. I've also lived in a lot of states that don't have the best public education systems. And we are so fortunate that we have a choice to keep our kids in public schools, where a lot of places, if you want your kids to get the best education possible, keeping them in the public schools is not an option. And the resources that we have, being in a small district, but an affluent district in a lot of ways, really puts us in a unique position to give our kids the best start possible.
All right. Your survey says that you support the plan to build a new high school. Do you have anything to
Yes.
add to this topic? This is obviously something that voters care a lot about. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to this, or is your position pretty much summed up by I support the plan to build a new high school?
I do support the plan to build the new high school. And having read about things in the paper and having read the articles and that have been brought out by various parties and editorials and whatnot, nothing's ever perfect. However, a plan is in place and it's a very well thought out plan. And I do believe that the administration, the current school board, the superintendent's office, the entire school district would certainly want to meet everyone's dreams and wishes. And if those avenues are unfeasible, we now have to find option B. I do this a lot for a living as well. I am an interior designer with a background in construction and architecture, and not everything gets to be 100%. Sometimes things are only 90% of what you want. And that might be the case with the high school. However, that 90%, let's make it the best 90% possible. And that's where I feel I can do the most good. So I am in support of the high school. I get that it's not ideal, but let's make the best of what we have. And that's really my kind of mentality, because it's a good mentality for living and business and school.
Well, you mentioned that background in the professional building and construction industry, and I wanted to ask you more about that. Tell me a little bit about that background and how you think that it would make you an asset to the school board.
So interestingly enough, while I am an interior designer and I don't deal with many commercial properties, my very first job was my senior year of high school as a co-op student in Michigan for a small architectural firm. Yay, SBW Architects and Associates. Literally like 8, 9 people, I think 10 at the most. And I was a draftsperson, a high school draftsperson as a co-op student from 12 to 5, Monday through Friday, my entire senior year. And they built religious education buildings. So that was a big part of their firm, was not only building Catholic churches, but also building Catholic schools, Lutheran schools, etc. I also worked there for another 2 years when I finished college. So I got the unique experience of really being there on and off for 7 years. And a big church construction project for a school and a new worship space were being done during the 2 years that I worked there. So I have intimate knowledge of not just the building codes that go into that. You get into the specifications of materials, I mean, all sorts of jargon, but really what it comes down to is I've been on the architecture side of that, and I'm good at translating. That's also what I do a lot in my personal business and residential design, is I end up being the intermediary between the clients and the contractor. And to merge those two worlds isn't as seamless as you'd think sometimes. Contractors don't necessarily speak layman's terms, and people don't ask the right questions, or you've got to have that advocate, that sort of impartial third party, although in this instance I would be partial, obviously, because I'm a member of the school district. It still helps, though, to have so much experience and have a strong working muscle in being that advocate, so that the client, aka us, the school district, is getting the best possible outcome, and that we understand what we're being told, because there's a lot of things. It's a lot of moving parts. It's a very complicated process. And so anything I can do to help in that with my knowledge base, why wouldn't I want to give back to the community? Why wouldn't I want to do that for my kids' school? And it's the perfect opportunity for me to do the most good in that position at this time.
Okay, we're running out of our time here, and I want to be mindful of your time, but I want to give you one last opportunity to sort of make the typical pitch. Why should voters vote for you? Why do you think people who are trying to decide what they should, who they should vote for, why should they vote for Julianne?
I'm dedicated to the community. I'm dedicated to our kids. I'm dedicated to the school. I'm dedicated to the high school being built the best way possible, under the best circumstances, and mindful of all of those things. And I do consider myself, while I am chatty, and the people who know me, I can be intense and passionate, but that all comes from a genuine place of wanting to do good, wanting to serve, and wanting to make things better. I also consider myself a pretty good negotiator. I am not an expert, but I do know to ask experts in everything. And I think that ability to be open-minded for other people's opinions and views and to respect other people's expertise while standing in my own space for my own. I think that diverse group of opinions and perspectives, which is why it's great that the school board is so many members, that I would be a good candidate to add to that and help it along to progress for the next 4 years and possibly thereafter, just as a contributing member.
All right. Julianne Mazzarella, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt. Nice to talk with you today. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Dobler, and I'm sitting here in a Zoom room with Jessica Webster. Jessica is a candidate for the Quaker Valley School Board, and she has kindly agreed to let me chat with her and get to know her and help let our Swiftly Stream subscribers also get to know her. Jessica, hello.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Well, thanks for being here. Why don't you start off by introducing yourself to Quaker Valley voters?
Absolutely. So I am Jessica Webster. I have lived in Quaker Valley for the last 12 years. I've raised all my children here in the district. I have 3 of them. I have a sophomore in high school, I have a 6th grader, and I have a 2nd grader at Osborne Elementary School. In addition to being a district parent, I am a professional educator. I spent 20 plus years in education, starting out as a classroom teacher with a special education and social studies education background, have served as an inclusion specialist, have served as an assistant principal, and then led a laboratory school in the city of Pittsburgh for 3 years before heading out to do some educational consulting with an educational equity firm that is based in Maryland. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks. So I want to unpack there's a lot packed in there, and I want to kind of go back through a little bit of that. And I want to start with your kids. I mean, you have a wide variety of kids in different buildings in the Quaker Valley School District. Why don't you tell us more about your experience with children in the district?
Absolutely. So I've been so proud to be a parent member of this community. My children, I say students because I'm in education. My own children have had a great experience here throughout the school district with really kind and supportive teachers, administrators that are willing to listen and ask questions and get to know my kids. I think they've had a very personalized experience here, which you don't always get in larger school districts. And they are just thriving. I think it's a great community, very welcoming, and yeah, it's just been great watching my children flourish under the leadership of the school district here.
You mentioned that you were a former school teacher and administrator. Tell me how you think that experience would help you serve on the school board.
Well, first of all, I think that I'm uniquely positioned to be able to understand the overall policy and programs that public educators are responsible for throughout the state of Pennsylvania, the guidance and the guidelines that we need to follow as a public school, rights and responsibilities, those sorts of things. I also have experience creating policy and being part of those discussions. So I think that's always helpful as a board member because that's what you do. But I also think it gives me an opportunity to understand the perspectives of all the stakeholders in a school district, right? I come with my own parent experience and viewpoint along with that of my peers that I hear from that viewpoint, but also understanding the perspective of what we need to do to support our teachers to make sure that they can be good educators, and the roles and the stresses and responsibilities of our administrators and what kind of supports they need to make sure that we're all working as one community to have a successful school district.
Obviously, the high school project is a huge touchstone. Tell me about your views on that building.
We absolutely need a new high school. We've needed a new high school since prior to my daughter being in kindergarten, when I was fortunate enough to attend a high school tour up there. The problems haven't gone away. I think we're spending money as a district to repair and Band-Aid things that we don't need to be Band-Aiding anymore. I also think instructionally, school is not the same as it was in the early 1900s. and the bandwidth that we need, the infrastructure that we need, the technology that we need for our students to be able to be competitive in society can only be done if we have a building in which they can do that. We have amazing teachers at that high school. I've been up there for 2 years, and I think we're really handicapping their ability to innovate and think outside the box a little bit with the size of the classrooms, as well as the lack of infrastructure to do the things they need to do. And I would also just say that it's also not conducive for learning for our students. It's not a comfortable environment physically for students to be up there with leaky roofs and a persistent mildew smell. It just, our kids and our students and our teachers deserve a better environment. And then finally, I would just say that I think a high school should be the cornerstone, the capstone of a community. And I think that we live in an age where we have a lot of people moving in and out of the Pittsburgh area for multiple reasons, and they absolutely shop for school districts. I used to get phone calls as an administrator saying, why should we come to you? And I think that when they see what other districts offer, there is a part that is about physical plant. And I think we need to have that ability to show off all the things that we're doing behind the scenes need to be able to be displayed through a high school building that really reflects our community and its values for education.
Your survey response reflected a very nuanced view with respect to the question of the role of parents and teachers in terms of curriculum development. Tell me more about your view on that subject.
Well, absolutely, because here's where I think my role as an educator comes into play. So the state itself provides guidance on the standards which all public schools have to they have to follow, right? And so how we teach that, there is material, there is pedagogy, right? And I think that those things are best, not that we don't take into view parent viewpoint on that and experiences, but educators are uniquely positioned and trained to understand the pedagogy, the best pedagogy and the best practice in order to teach our students. There's also lots of things that we need to look into in terms of making sure that the materials are accessible for all our students, making sure that they're up to date, and that they reflect, the standards that we have to teach. However, I do think that there is a significant role that parents play. They are their children's first teacher. They know their children the best. And I think that it's really marrying that idea of here's who my child is and here's what they need. And then the understanding of, as a teacher, I have the expertise to make sure that we meet those needs, and the understanding that we need to follow specific guidelines. So I think there really is a nuanced balance between that takes a lot of conversation and a lot of ability for that bi-directional communication so that families feel like they get a chance to share their hopes and dreams for their children and what they think their children need, but also that sense of we are a public school and these are the requirements and the standards that we have to hold, that we are held up to as a district.
And then speaking of that bi-directional communication that you just mentioned, in your survey response, you said you'd like to have a systemic way to engage the community and receive feedback. Tell me more about how you think that the school board should try to have this bi-directional communication.
Yeah, so I think that we are, as school board members, we are voted into office and we represent our constituents, right? And I know it's not a political office, it is a political office, but we are responsible for making sure that we're representing our regions. And so I think the only way to do that is to make sure that we have ways that we can capture some feedback. I think oftentimes when you don't put systems into place, and I think this is true for schools too, and I learned this as an administrator, you only hear the voices that are going to come forward to you, right? And so you're always going to get that slanted view of the people that are really unhappy with something that's going on, and if you're lucky, the people that are really happy with what's going on. But there's a lot in the middle, and there's a lot of people who have ideas to bring forward, who have experiences to bring forward, and I think we need to do a better, I don't want to say better job. I just think that's something that's important to me, that we need to capture that, that data and really understand what the concerns and the needs are of the families that we represent in our regions, and be able to use that when we're making decisions, so that we have those voices in our head and we're thinking about the diverse groups of people that we serve in our communities, to be able to do our jobs well.
All right, last chance before I stop record. Anything else you want to say to voters?
I think what I want to say is, having lived here for 12 years, and having that education background that I have, I think I come uniquely positioned to be able to really support public education in our community, and support all our stakeholders. And I have a very deep commitment to making sure that I'm serving the region as a whole, and hearing voices of all the members of the region. And so I think a vote for me is a vote for that transparency and that ability to have, that proactive communication.
All right, Jessica Webster, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Hello, Swickly Stream subscribers. I am here today with Corina Garcia Skorpinski, who is a candidate for Quaker Valley School Board. Corina, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The name of the game here really is just to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to voters and tell them why you're running. So please go ahead and do that. Tell people about you.
Okay. You can just call me Corina. That's an easier thing to remember. I am running for school board. I'm a former school teacher, so I know the importance of the decisions that are made by a school board, how it impacts the classroom, the teacher, everybody that surrounds the school area. So my passion for the kids, I'm passionate about transparency, and that's why I chose to run.
A career in education certainly brings an important perspective to the school board. What lessons do you think you've learned from the classroom that you could take to the boardroom?
Well, I've worked in two situations, one where the school was not as equipped, and the other where it was a brand new school and had state-of-the-art things for me to be able to teach my students. So when the decision was made to not enhance the older school, it became very difficult for me to teach there, because I was having to put a lot of my own salary into the classroom for these kids to be competitive with everyone else. So I think that that's a big lesson for me, because I want to be able, in decisions that I make or we as a school board make, that it is enhancing the kids' education, and it's making it not per se easy for the teacher, but making her items accessible so that she can teach our children.
Why don't you go back and unpack your background in education and explain to voters exactly what that means when you say you have a career in education?
So I have a Bachelor of Science in bilingual education, ESL education, and a minor in health. I did teach 5th grade every subject, and I taught it in Spanish. I taught underprivileged children who, didn't have English as their first language. So I taught everything, math, science, reading, everything in Spanish for them to be able to catch up and compete with the rest of the kids. I also, in Texas, translated the standardized testing that the kids take every 3 years to kind of level out their progress or see their progress. I went ahead and translated the English version into Spanish. And we actually began to see that the bilingual kids were catching on. They were just as smart. They just couldn't read English. So I think that, and I did that for many years. I also taught Spanish. I was what was considered a mobile Spanish teacher when I lived in Philadelphia, when I lived in West Virginia, and I've done it here. I actually have a little cart that I carry with me, and I go from classroom to classroom and teach them Spanish. And we started in the elementary ages so that when they did go into middle school and high school, they would have some interest in that language. I've also been able, thankfully, to meet some teachers who had to learn how to teach Spanish. They would teach other languages, but weren't aware of how to teach Spanish. So I tutored them and helped them get a grip on the language. I also helped them be able to pass their certification to teach the language.
You're running on a slate of candidates. Can you share with us how your individual experience enhances your group's platform?
Well, really, I'm running because I'm passionate about the kids. I'm running because I want to be able to provide a new high school. That's the big thing in Swickley, for our kids, because I want to attract good teachers for our kids. I want to give supplies and access to great things that the teachers need that are currently teaching to be able to help our kids. I want to build this new school with state-of-the-art equipment so that we have true safety for our kids, so that they don't have to worry about going to school. They're going to be safe there. You know, I want to be able to provide a comfortable environment for them, such as simple thing like air conditioning in the hot months. You know, when children's basic needs are met, they learn and they do very well. I want to, though, however, be able to build this new high school, but build smart, because I want it not only to benefit the kids and the teachers, but our community as well, because we as taxpayers are, you know, putting in for this new school. I do believe the new school needs to be built, and it's going to open access to new curriculum. It's going to open access to new programs, volunteers, so forth. So I'm for that. And transparency. I want our community to be transparent as to how this school is going to be built, what may happen. You know, it's going to be a learning process, but we need to be able to be transparent with our community to allow them to make a decision like, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe I'm not against the school. They're trying to work on issues that we are concerned with as well. So I think, you know, that's my platform, as you know, you say. I want to build the new school. I want to be transparent in the community, and I just want the best for the kids.
So just to be clear, does that mean that you support building a new school at the site where the school district is moving forward at this point?
I do. I do think that we need to make really good engineering adjustments, because people are worried about the traffic flow. People are worried about, you know, is the land going to hold up? I know there's a lot of wording out there, but I want it to be a little more transparent on both sides, the opposing team and the team that's for it. The land is bought, so we need to do something with it. And I don't think not building on it is an option. We can't build on the old school. We tried to expand the land. That would have taken people out of those homes next to the school to be able to expand on that, or it would have taken Giant Eagle out of the picture. So I think we need to move forward with it. There's traffic going through Beaver anyway when the kids let out of school, because that's the only way most of the traffic path flows. I remember I have a Quaker Valley student who graduated in 2012, and I remember how difficult it was when I had to go pick her up. You were fighting traffic. People in that area were being upset because we were parking in their lawn or beside their lawn to pick up our kids. So, you know, that's a concern then, and I think it's going to be a concern for anywhere that we would build.
It's almost as if you read my mind. I was going to ask you next about your daughter that graduated from Quaker Valley. And as I understand it, she was the cheer captain, the homecoming queen, correct?
She was. We moved here her sophomore year, which is a very difficult age to move to. Quaker Valley, you know, being such a small school, she was able to meet people. She had a wonderful experience. She had wonderful teachers that prepared her very well when she applied to college. I mean, she got into some fantastic places. She decided to go to the Ohio State University in Columbus. And she's done well. She's done very well. She still remembers a lot of her teachers here, and you know, she's enjoyed that memory.
All right, I'm about wrapped up here, but before I do, I mean, my last question is maybe a catch-all. If it's not, consider it a catch-all if you'd like to. I
Okay.
mean, what do you consider as the most pressing issues facing the Quaker Valley School Board, and how do you think that you could help address those issues?
So right now, like I said, the biggest issue is the building of the new school. We have some people who are holding that up because they believe that they're going to be chased out of their homes because they're not going to be able to afford with the taxes. They are saying that the amount that they've put out there to build is not accurate. So it's going to cost money. And I know that. And I think people would be more open if we were just very transparent and say, no, it's going to be more than this, but we're going to try to keep it at this amount. You know, we need to be more aware of, I think people felt tricked that they didn't get to pick the land that they purchased. And so I think I want to be more transparent with them. I want to put out the good and the bad and how we're going to fix it, you know, so that they know that we're being honest and not trying, you know, to trick people into, you know, this is what we did and so what we have to do. Because after door knocking, I've talked to several people. They really are for the new school. They just kind of are a little leery because they were like, the land was bought without much consideration as to what we had to say or anything. So I think transparency is going to be key on this issue.
All right. Any last words?
Vote for me. I'm
All
looking
right.
forward to providing my services.
Great last words. Can't be said any better by a candidate. Very well done. Karina Garcia Skorpinski, thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Dobler. Welcome to Swiftly Stream. I'm here with one of the candidates for Quaker Valley School Board, Missy Walls. Missy, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
The name of the game here with these interviews is simply to allow voters to get to know the candidates. So why don't you introduce yourself to voters?
Great. As you said, my name is Missy Walls. I currently reside in Edgeworth with my wife and my daughter, who is 9 years old and is in third grade at Edgeworth Elementary. I myself am a QV graduate. 1981, I graduated, and I have two siblings who are also graduates of QV, and my parents are also graduates of QV. My father graduated in 1959, which interestingly was the first year the schools were combined, Leedsdale and Swickley, and they were Quaker Valley. So he was the first graduating class from Quaker Valley School District, and my mother was the second. And I've had lots of aunts and uncles and cousins over the years who have also graduated from QV. So I have a lot of ties to the community.
Wow, so that means that the student that you have in school now is the third generation QV student. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes,
wow,
you're correct.
That's great. So, I mean, how does that experience prime you to be a school board candidate?
You know, Quaker Valley, I cherished my time when I was in school at Quaker Valley. I really, really enjoyed my experience in elementary school, high school, junior high. I made a lot of longtime friends that I've kept in touch with. And, you know, now with social media, it's a lot easier to keep in touch with your friends from long ago. But, you know, it's really a great community to live in now, looking back, now that I live here with my family. And it is somewhere I wanted to, we moved here about 5 years ago. We've always been local, but, you know, moving back here is where I wanted my daughter to go to Quaker Valley. And I've heard many people, many of my friends, many people I've met throughout the years, you know, say that they've moved here to this community for Quaker Valley. And that's exactly the way I feel. So I think that experience has really will benefit me as a school board member, knowing this community as well as I do, and having the a lot of contacts in this community. I think it will be an asset to me on the school board.
Tell me a little bit about your experience as a parent of a daughter at, you said Edgeworth, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the experience of somebody at Edgeworth versus Osborne. I mean, do you see any disparity between the two schools?
That's a good question. I don't see disparity between the two schools. I see that things I've learned and heard about over the years is that, you know, Osborne is their own entity and Edgeworth is their own entity. They both have their different cultures and different environments, but at the bottom, at the core, I think they're both excellent schools with excellent teachers. I personally just would rave about the teachers my daughter has had in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. They do a phenomenal job. And I can't say enough about the teachers and the staff in this school district, you know, and I have volunteered every year. Kindergarten, first grade, I was a homeroom coordinator. I also worked in the cafeteria for like 2.5 years. So I've been in the schools. I'm an active volunteer with the PTA. I'm right now chairing the Teacher Appreciation Week activities and events that we're going to be doing. So I'm involved in the school. I see what happens. I've gotten to know the principal, the support staff, the teachers. Just phenomenal. Can't say enough about them.
Obviously, the main event in this election isn't in the elementary schools. It's the building of the high school project. Tell me what your feelings are with respect to the high school project, please.
Well, I touched on it earlier when we first started to talk that my father was the first graduating Quaker Valley class. You know, but if you look even before that, there was Leetsdale High School and there was Swickley High School. Swickley High School was the middle school. So that was built as a high school for Swickley students. Leetsdale High School, Quaker Valley High School, was built in 1926 for Leetsdale High School students. And that school has been there since 1926. So my feeling is, you know, I see these signs around that say it's time to build. I think it's way past time to build. That school I would describe as a dinosaur. It's ancient, it's old. Our kids need a modern education building. They need access to all the updated technology that's available. The classrooms need to be safe. The environment needs to be safe. You know, that they don't need leaky roofs and ceilings. And I think the only alternative is to build a new school. Where the school is planned to be built, I've been up there. I have toured the site. I've talked to people about it, and I feel completely comfortable that that is a very appropriate and safe place to build the school. And I don't think all of the experts that have weighed in on this matter, engineers, architects, and so forth, you know, I think that they would not give advice to build that school there if it wasn't a safe place to build the school. So. I think
I guess just for the avoidance of doubt, do you support building a new school at the site that's been chosen by the current administration?
Yes, I do. Yes, I'm sorry. Having said
I just want to make sure. I mean, I've been asking all the candidates very specifically because I think that that's a very particular point in this election. Yeah. I'd like to make sure that everybody's sort of clear on where they stand on that. Yeah. Okay, so maybe outside of the high school project, what are the other issues? What are the other major issues that you see confronting the Quaker Valley School Board?
I think that the school board has a huge responsibility, you know, education, administration, and just, you know, generally overseeing everything that happens in the district. I think that it's key for school board members to first, you know, to listen to the issues, to learn about the issues, and then to make the best possible decisions based on that information, asking questions, getting more information if you're not, you know, if you don't feel comfortable with the situation or the issues. And I think it's very, very important to make decisions that are in the best interest of the students, of the school district, of the community, taxpayers. So to me, I mean, I need to learn more about, specific issues. I've been attending board meetings and, gathering information and, getting prepared in case I do get elected to the school board. But my issue, or what I would focus on is, the whatever is best for the school and the students, and to learn about those issues, to ask questions, and then make the best decisions I can possibly make based on that information.
Okay, so as you sort of navigate through Swickley, both as a parent and as a community member, I mean, what are the issues that you find relevant that motivate you wanting to run for school board?
Number one to me is the educational opportunities for our kids. The Quaker Valley is consistently in the top tier of schools in the state and in our area. And I don't want to see us fall below that. I want to see us to continue to get better. So, I think it's vitally important to be able to offer the best educational opportunities, whether that's, joining with some local universities and colleges, and being able to offer, some classes where the students can gain college credits at the same time, continue to improve that and increase those opportunities for our kids, and just make sure we have the resources and the educational tools so that our kids are prepared for whatever career path they decide after college is best for them, whether it's college, technical training, and so forth. I mean, these are all things that make our community better.
Okay, I'm about ready to press stop, but before I stop the recording, let me just leave it with you for any last words. Why should voters vote for you?
I would appreciate everybody's vote, because I am someone who loves this community. I'm passionate about this community. I have a lot of ties in this community, and I plan on being here for a long time. I want to see my daughter graduate from here. And, like I said, I don't have an agenda. My agenda is to make sure I do the best I can with the information I'm given as a school board member, whether it's information I personally have as an attorney and a former nonprofit executive. Rely on those resources I personally have, and to rely on the resources that will be available to the board members from the experts, the administration, and to, like I said, to learn about the issues, to ask questions, and then make the best decisions I can for the school district.
All right. Missy Walls, thank you so much for your time here today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Matt.
Hello, Swickley Stream subscribers. I am here today with school board candidate and incumbent, Gianni Floro. Gianni, thank you very much for joining me.
You're very welcome, Matt. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with the voters.
Well, the name of the game is for you to speak with the voters. So why don't you take this opportunity to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Gianni Floro. I'm a resident of Bell Acres. Before that, my wife Lisa and I, we did reside in Leet Township on Kenny Drive in the Quaker Heights neighborhood. Before that, I was at school at Duquesne University for 10 years, where I got my Juris Doctorate, my master's in environmental sciences and management, as well as a degree in biology. Before that, lived in Swickley with my parents, where I attended Quaker Valley from the beginning to the end, with a short stint at St. James for a short while. We're members of the Divine Redeemer Parish in Swickley. We have two children, Tommaso, who's a freshman at Allegheny, studying environmental sciences, so I'm very proud of that. He's also on the baseball team. My daughter Mia is in 9th grade. She plays on the lacrosse team, and she has aspirations to go to a big school somewhere. So we've been taking her around a little bit with regard to that. So that's a little bit about my background. I really enjoyed my time at Quaker Valley, and that's why I think it's important for me to be in this position, to continue that rich educational experience for our students.
You've just got so many positive qualities that fit checkboxes that voters I assume, would be looking at. Graduate of Quaker Valley, been here forever. You've been on the board. You're an incumbent. You've been here for a while. I mean, tell us what makes you uniquely situated to fill this role on the school board.
I think one of the most important things is that I originally did not seek this position. Back in 2001, one of my friend's fathers, Reverend Mead, passed away, and there was an open school board seat. My boss at the time told me to go to this political meeting to observe, and the person they were going to appoint to the board didn't show up. And my good friend, Dr. Eiler, God rest her soul, said, look at you, you've got, 2 arms, 2 legs, apparently a pulse. How would you like to be on the school board? So you can imagine how difficult it was for me to explain to my wife, I just think I got on the school board, hon. So, while that's one of those qualities that sometimes we are called into service, I think that's important not only for the voters to know, but also I'm guided by my faith, and my faith calls me into service as well. And I think that's something else that people should understand about me, is that it's important for me to take care of our students, our staff.
Gianni, obviously, one of the major issues in this election is the school board's project to build a new high school. I mean, obviously, as an incumbent, I assume that you support that project, but tell voters how you feel, please, about the high school project.
When I graduated from high school, we needed a new high school. Some 10 years later, when I was on the school board, I knew we needed a new high school. 20 years later, we still need a new high school. And it's important, I think, for the voters to understand a little bit of the historical narrative why we're doing the high school now. When I first got on the board in 2001, we had 2 elementary schools that were in dire need of renovation. We had a middle school that was in need of renovation. And then we had the high school that was in need of renovation. And in fact, in 97, when they attempted to do renovations on the high school, part of the 3rd floor fell into the 2nd floor. And thank goodness no one got injured. And that is part of the problem with the high school. Structurally, the way it was built, it's really not subject to renovation, effective renovation. You can renovate anything, but is that money being spent appropriately doing that? Are we putting lipstick on a pig, as they would say? Importantly, we spent a great deal of time studying the present site where the high school sits. It's landlocked, and it presents challenges with regard to before the day starts, when we're trying to get students into the building, to during the school day, to the end of the school day, when we're trying to get students back into their homes. It presents many challenges. So site conditions are not amenable to constructing a new building behind the high school. There's a 100-year floodplain back there where the sports facilities are. The slope that goes down is rubble and fill, basically on a former mine. From some of our investigations, we've learned there's over 20 cisterns up on the hill on the road up there. So that's why we've looked to a new site to build the high school.
It's probably a tough question to ask somebody that sits on the board, but tell me things that you think that the Quaker Valley School Board does both well and places where you think that they could improve.
When people walk into the door and sit down at the board meetings, we do not have people on the board with agendas. Politics are left outside. And I think that's really important that people don't understand, because as a board, and I'll talk about the constraints of being a board member. Again, I'm one of 9. A. B, we are constrained with the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the laws from the federal government. And people don't really grasp that, because it's one thing to say, I'm going to go in and I'm going to lower teacher salaries. That's ridiculous, because we want to attract and retain the best and brightest teachers. But again, we're in a negotiated contract with them. There's health care, there's their retirement. Those things aren't just wiped away with a new board coming in. That just doesn't happen. And there's laws that prevent that from happening. In addition to that, our superintendent and assistant superintendent, who are commissioned officers of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, are really our 2 hires. And they hire everyone else. And again, people, I don't think, understand the framework within which the school board works. And I think when new members come on and they see that, they have a better understanding of, well, how can we make our appropriate nudges? And I think it's designed that way. And it, some people say it doesn't work, but I would tell people to look at our graduating class last year and where all those students have gone to school or the trades that they've picked up.
All right, Gianni, last question here, and it's a open-ended one. Why should voters vote for you?
I think you should vote for me because I care about our students. I care about our community. I'm a father. I'm a coach. I'm a practicing attorney. Been recently admitted to the Academy of Trial Lawyers of Allegheny County, which is a huge distinction in my career. I think it's important for everyone to understand that before I ever support something, I make sure that we've tested the validity of all the different concepts involved to figure out what's that practical result going to be. Because we can't just run in, act like gangbusters and try to change the landscape. It doesn't work that way. It's more important to make appropriate assessments, use good due diligence, and then act appropriately. And we're doing that with the high school. And that's the big, that's our biggest point of contention right now in this community. But I can promise you that I will never seek to overtax, overspend, or overbuild. And it's important for you to understand that I understand all the concepts involved here, that we are limited by what's called the Taj Mahal Act in the size of our building, but we're constrained as well within our spending power that we can borrow in order to build the new building. And finally, I want something that generations from now are going to be proud of, that our alumni are going to want to get on board and come back and be proud of. I think that's the goal here, because we have such a strong, rich community here. And when I say rich, I mean, it's a wonderful community. You can't swing a stick without hitting a church. And that's a wonderful thing. Our students have wonderful co-curricular activities, and we have wonderful teachers and administration, which I will continue to support if you put me back in office. Thank you.
All right, Gianni Floro, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Dobler.
Hello, Swickly Stream subscribers. My name is Matthew Dobler, and I am here today in a Zoom room with Jeff Barnes. Jeff, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Matt, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. So the name of the game with these videos here is simply to let the viewers get to know you. So why don't we take advantage of this opportunity and have you introduce yourself to the voters?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Appreciate that. So like you said, my name is Jeff Barnes. The short story here is I live in Region 2. I'm the father of 3 Quaker Valley graduates and 1 first grader in Osborne, and I'm running for re-election to the school board.
All right. And so, I mean, let's break apart a little bit of what you just said there. Tell me about your experience with your kids in the Quaker Valley School District.
Well, so I had 3 sons, Alex, Jack, and Connor graduate. Let's see, Alex graduated during the pandemic. He was in his bedroom his senior year. And Jack and Connor, you know, a year or so each before him. They had a fantastic experience there.
And you also mentioned that you're an incumbent school board member. Tell us obviously how that affects your votability.
As an incumbent, well, I mean, how do I put this? Because it feels immodest. Okay, basically, this is what it comes down to. It feels immodest to say it, but I think like if I were evaluating the candidates who are running right now, and I think there are lots of good, I think there are 4 good candidates running in Region 2. Like, don't get me wrong. I think though that I am the most qualified at the moment by virtue in part of the 4 years of experience that I've got so far. I mean, other votability concerns. I mean, I think that neighbors who vote for me know that I come to this work without like ego or bombast, and that I'm an excellent listener, that I like people, that I'm curious, that, you know, I view my job as like taking a shift basically at this like experiment of government by the people, right? I mean, this is the by the people part. It's the way it works. And so, you know, I come to it with that point of view that this is like an honor and a duty, and, you know, wrapped up in one, and try to do well at that. And I think that I hope that my record so far as an advocate for the high school construction project, for the health and safety of the community, my time on the finance committee, that, you know, those speak to my experience and to my orientation toward public service.
Okay, you mentioned the high school building project. Obviously, it's one of the huge issues in this election. Tell us where you stand on this issue.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so I think that's kind of a funny question, right? I think it's a funny question, but it's a good question. But it's funny because, like, considering what a powerful advocate and involved planner I've been so far during my first term, like, I hope it's pretty obvious where I stand, right? And so I can say 100% in favor, no question, it's time to build. Like, let me be like super unequivocal about that, right? If you want to drill into it, we can drill into it some more, but just at a top line, 100%. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm happy at the top line, but if you have anything else you'd like to add, I'm happy to listen.
Yeah. So when I was first running 4 years ago, like I did something that I see a lot of people doing now. It looks familiar, and that's that I wanted to know why we couldn't build on the existing land, why we couldn't renovate the existing high school, why we couldn't reuse that existing infrastructure and retain the benefits of the existing location, right? So I called school board members, I went to meetings, and I asked people, why can't we do this? It wasn't immediately clear to me that we just flat out couldn't, but 4 things I think over time became clear to me. The first was that, big surprise, I wasn't the first question to be the first person to be asking those questions, right? I was by no means, it wasn't a novel idea. Why can't we just build in place? In fact, like, generations of boards had tried to do the same thing, right? They had investigated the cost, they had investigated the engineering options, they had investigated the capacity, and they found that it was just infeasible, right? It just, they priced it, they'd investigated, they tried, it wasn't going to work. Second, for a combination of reasons, building on the existing site is infeasible, and I learned that. Third, previous boards had also exhausted the search for other properties, and the current site is not just the least bad option available, it's a great option that didn't exist until some innovative thinking put it on the table. Fourth thing that I learned is that a history of prudent fiscal management has positioned the district well to build a high school for the next 100 years, for program requirements to from program requirements to sustainability on a reasonable and manageable budget. So learning those 4 things really like put a lot of pieces in place for me. And that's what got me 100% behind building the high school as we're planning it right now, as we're going to build it, and not trying to hang on to the existing site and the dream that we could keep it there.
Well, okay. Let's change gears. Let's move off the high school, and let's talk about some of the things that you think that the school board does well.
I've said this before, and I'll say it and I'll say it to anybody who wants to hear it. I think we're apolitical, and I think that that's like a major victory, especially in an environment where school boards are under like very uncomfortable, divisive, partisan spotlights, and where school board service has been really tough, I think, in a lot of places. Here at times too, over the last number of years. And I think like in that environment, for us to stay as like nonpartisan, apolitical, united, and pragmatic as we've been in our mission to just support the best school district that we can, I think that's an amazing accomplishment, and we do really well at that.
All right, so let's change gears here. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what motivated you to run?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for asking that. It's what motivated me to run is something that I don't share a whole lot, but that I think I'd like to share. I think it would like be helpful to share it more. And it's like, first of all, I'm just a passionate believer in the value of education, like for ourselves as people and to our world. And if I really care about that, then the inevitable conclusion is what I want is to have that for everyone, right? So it's not just education that I support, but it's public education, and for that to be the best that we can make it. Beyond that, though, like I'm stuck in this kind of Venn intersection of idealism and pragmatism, where I'm on the one hand like this starry-eyed fanboy of the American experiment of self-rule, and on the other hand, I'm super clear-eyed that it only survives if the by the people part gets upheld. And so that means we each take our turn serving. And I mean, that's, like I said earlier, I think both an obligation and an honor.
So we're getting ready to wrap up. We're running out of time. Before we go, is there anything else you want to share with the voters?
Yeah. To the people who have supported me in the past, I want to thank you. And the people who are supporting me right now also. To people who don't know me yet, or who are maybe on the fence, please like reach out and ask me for a conversation. I am just genuinely curious about everybody around me, about my neighbors and friends. I'd love to get to know you all, and I hope to continue to represent my neighbors in Region 2 on the Quaker Valley School Board.
All right. Jeff Barnes, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Matt.